All right, welcome again to Social Distillation, the submarine still of the internet, where we attempt to drop the bead and pour white lightning straight onto your brain. What are we talking about today, Samo?
Well, we've let some internet chatter simmer a little bit for a while and decided to go ahead and weigh in on the GayBama stuff going on and just talk
I
about
wasn't,
Obama in general. This is part one. We're going to do a
yeah.
part two where we bitch about Wheel of Time. So if you're here for Wheel of Time, hit part two. If you're here for all the bitching, then stick with us.
All right, so I wasn't going to talk about this because I don't care. Um, there is so much wrong with recent history, with the past couple of decades. We're obsessed with all things Trump, but as we said early on when we first started this nonsense, we are of the camp that Trump was the symptom of an existing disease. He wasn't the disease. And we've gone ad nauseum about that. So um, I'm much more interested in the roots of where all this stuff comes from. But I have to rant a bit because two of my regular listens have been talking about it and clearly aren't listening to each other, even though they're on the same network. Uh, because Whitlock talked about this even before the Tucker interview. He was actually talking about this. And then he talked about it more after the Tucker interview with the guy claiming, yeah, we smoked crack and then smoked each other.
Mm-hmm.
So he was talking about this a fair bit. And Steve Deace won't shut up about it, but in a snarky way, because what's ticking him off uh is the is he draws a connection between what's happening here with Obama the homo, Obama, and the the kind of Twitter meme nonsense that Trump is going to get 20% of the black vote, because there was a poll that said he had something like 20%. And Tim Pool's been on this, and
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
he's generally a smart guy, except he sometimes exhibits the inverse of Trump's derangement syndrome, which we've talked about, which is the Trump obsession syndrome, that all things Trump are awesome and he's playing 8D chess against everybody, and it's just, no, it's not. Um, so so Dace has been ranting for days snarkily about how can you say on basically summarizing, how can you say on the one hand that Trump is going to break the stranglehold that the Democrat Party has on the black vote, but then you're also running around saying that the first black president was a crack whore. You can't do both at the same time. They're going to conflict. This is a clear indication of, you know, the Trump derangement syndrome and Trump obsession syndrome fighting each other. Um, but as I've tried to get his attention and messaged him a few times, saying you're missing the point and you need to talk with your brother from another mother, Whitlock, because he's been on this. So he's had Delano Squires, who writes very eloquently about the problems of the black community, and then he has Royce White, who's one of my favorite characters on the show because he's you know how people have like called Vivek the more eloquent Trump because he's able to
Or the
it
Republican Obama. Some
or the
people have called him
Republican,
that. Yeah.
yes, that's the inverse. That's the criticism. The flip side of that is that he's the Republican Obama because he can speak eloquently to the MAGA world. He can speak he can take these populist ideals and talking points, but then actually delve deeply into them in a more intellectual way. Well, that's Royce White, except he will also, you know, drop F-bombs and tell people to suck his black nuts. So he's amusing contrast of intellectualism and crudeness that I find refreshing. He's also running for, I think he's running for Senate in Minnesota now. He was like a top round draft pick of the Minnesota Timberwolves a while back. He still lives in Minnesota. Anyway, the point being, this is why they have been on this issue, and I want to get your take on this. Um, because I was curious what you thought of this strategy, and if you think there's any way this could possibly work, which is even before this Tucker interview, Whitlock and Royce White were talking about this because there were rumors about this during his presidency, and I think during his first run, during the 07-08 campaign, these rumors were out there. Um, they he played a clip of Joan Rivers snarkily saying, because some TMZ person had asked if when are we going to have the first gay president? She said, "Oh, we already did. It was Obama." And then she made a comment about Big Mike. Um, I think we've referenced it before.
Just a sound check. I'm going to eat the mic here. I turned the gain all the way. Did I turn it up or down? Can you still hear me?
Yep.
Okay, because someone's talking on speakerphone in the background, and I don't want other conversations on our podcast. So I'll just eat the mic and have the gain all the way down. But
All
okay,
right.
so yeah, the Joan Rivers thing is funny. My take on it, on getting black voters, or my take on it on how
No,
ridiculous
no,
it
no.
is.
Oh, okay. So
Because this is going to be a nuanced thing, and I think this might be an original take if
so
we're talking about the
several
black voters.
weeks ago, I'd heard about before this interview, or I heard that Tucker was going to be doing this interview, um, Whitlock had a long program, the whole point of which one of the places where the LGBTQ silent P um, ideology utterly completely falls apart within the Democrat sphere is the black community,
Mm-hmm.
but especially among black men, not as much among black women, but especially among black men. And so he had a really long episode on black people wake up, the LGBT agenda that you oppose, it started and became accelerated under Obama. And not just with the Supreme Court decisions that happened there, but then a lot of the other stuff that was going on behind the scenes, and then later in his presidency when it was safe in his second term, right out in the open. So I think the point of shining this light on this potential part of Barack Obama's personal life is to wake up the black community and break them from that Democrat plantation, to shine a light on, look, these are the people you're supporting with your 90% voting pattern, historical voting pattern here. These are the people you're supporting, and this person here is an idol. You are idolizing this person instead of looking at who they really are. Taking it basically, there's enough smoke here, there's probably fire, and there's something sketchy about this guy. Now, I've been saying there's something sketchy about him because he's basically an avowed Marxist, and that's the world he grew up in. But if this kind of personal thing is what it takes to wake some people up, I'm not opposed to shining the light on it. So that's what I was curious about, is if you think that I'm right, that the strategy here is to wake the black vote up on a more personal and emotional level rather than an intellectual level, to break them away from that voting block that they've had for decades, for a century now, really.
I think yes, it does have merit. I don't think it's the merit that they think it's going to have, but I think it does have merit. And that 20% number kind of depends on how you word it. 20% of what the Democrats get, I can say actually that might be the case because of a lot of things. And this is where it gets nuanced. Not 20% of the total black vote, 20% of what the Democrats get, which would still be a big feat.
Mm-hmm.
Because the big one, the big elephant in the room is we've got Cornel West running in the Green Party, and he is going to pull a lot of the black vote, especially the
Yeah.
progressive black vote. So there's one. So now we've reduced the number the Democratic Party is getting, so that a percentage, you reduce the number, you get the same amount, you still get a certain percent, your percentage goes up. But then you also brought up an important point, and you use a key word. Young men are becoming more and more conservative right now because of the feminization of everything. And young black men are in that cohort. And then you bring in the So that's already a phenomenon happening, and that has nothing to do with gay or LGBTQ at all. So we got the first two things: Cornel West. We've got young men just starting to skew more conservative, anyways, because of how they've been treated, and now add to that yes, young black men are going to be influenced by the sexuality of possibly the first black president ever. So whether they're going to just go, oh, we're a Trumper now, that's probably saying too much, but they might just stay home. Or they might just go out and, if they do vote against whether it's with Cornell or whether it's with an independent, could go libertarian, whether it's with the Republican Party. They just don't vote Democrat. So either they just stay home and protest, or they vote whatever else pops forward. So yes, I think that it could be part of the strategy. I just hate that it's like the main thing, because it does take away from the point. And it's a little bit, it plays into the progressive side calling the Republican Party bigots.
And this is where this whole mess annoys me, because um I understand where Whitlock's coming from, because because he's also referencing other things about Obama's pre-presidential life, or really even before he ran for the Senate, um, that we weren't allowed to talk about uh, during that run. And so basically he's um, you remember that this is I think one of the things that got Sage Steele in trouble, is she pointed out, former ESPN journalist, sports journalist, because she's half black, half white, I think. Uh, and she made the point that, why is Obama the first black president instead of the first biracial president? And
Or you could say the same with Kamala Harris. Why is she the first black vice president instead of the first biracial?
let's get ourselves in trouble.
Oh, well, I'm glad we're doing this as two-part, because hopefully this stays up. Oh, it's Los Angeles Times though.
Mm-hmm. This is the Los Angeles Times, March of 2007. And now Rush Limbaugh got in trouble for this, because I believe it was after Obama became the nominee, or it was clear he was going to become the nominee. He had this guy who would do parody songs for him. Um, and he did one that was an imitation of Al Sharpton singing Barack the Magic Negro to Puff the Magic Dragon. All bent out of shape of, wait a minute, I'm I've been in the political process and in the limelight forever. How come this new kid is getting all the attention? And that's basically what this article is about, is uh the Magic Negro. It's a trope. It's uh, a figure of postmodern folk culture coined by snarky 20th century sociologists to explain a cultural figure who emerged in the wake of Brown versus Boards of Education. He has no past. He simply appears one day to help the white protagonist, reads the description on Wikipedia. It's the safe black guy, is what he's complaining about, is that you have all of these other black political figures, and then along comes Barack Obama, and he's the safe candidate. That's why he's getting so much white support. And the guy made a good point that all quickly disappeared once Obama became the nominee. And in that article and in numerous others, um, a lot of them by Thomas Sowell made this point of how is he representative of the black experience in America? He's not black in the sense that we think of the black American community. He's half
He's not
African.
where I lived in Lamarck.
He he was
He's
adopted
he's
by
he's private school black.
he spent a chunk of his
Mhm.
childhood growing up overseas, and then when he moved back to the States, back to Hawaii to live with his mother's parents, he went to an elite private school in Hawaii. but then he fashioned himself as this Chicago guy because he went to Chicago for his graduate work and to get into politics and community organizing. So he fashioned himself as, oh, I'm just a brother from Chicago. Bull crap. You're a half African dude who went to an elite private school in Hawaii and then went to the Ivy League. We're still not sure how because we're not allowed to question where that money came from. How is your experience even remotely comparable to that of the majority of the Black community? And so that's a big part of what Whitlock is doing with this in particular, and what he's been doing in general, was shining this light on Obama's past, because Obama has become a political idol in the Black community that you're not allowed to criticize. And he was a reinforcing of the stranglehold that the Democrat Party had on the Black vote. So I can see why he's doing it, and I can see how it might work generically or culturally. But I can also see where Dace is coming from on the specific point of, one, these two things don't go together. This idea that Trump is going to get 20% of the Black vote and you're doing this. Now, that I can understand where he's coming from, but I think he's wrong, because if Whitlock's right, no, that could work to break off a chunk. Especially now with how hard the Democrats are leaning into the LGBT, as that's the new civil rights movement. But I think what's being missed here is what you just touched on, which is what Tucker has been doing since he left Fox has been rather bizarre. And it leaves me scratching my head going, what are you trying to do here? What are you trying to accomplish?
Get
Why are you
views.
talking to these people? Exactly. It's
Because
just to get clicks. It's just to
it's
get
as simple as
views.
that. And if you treat it like that, then I can appreciate what he's doing. If you think he's some messiah that's going to speak truth to power and get everything right in the country, then you're going to be sorely disappointed.
Yeah.
He is an entertainer. He does have beliefs, and I actually align with some of them because he's very much against the deep state. But at the same time, he knows how to play his system.
But it's disappointing given what he was doing when he was at Fox, when he had overseers, when he had gatekeepers that he had to work within the confines of. So it's disappointing in that vein. It's also disappointing because you can chase the clicks with this, Obama's a literal crack whore interview, but you could also make it something more substantial. That interview would be more impactful and make more sense if the next one then was, say, uh, about Jeremiah Wright and what Black liberation theology is, and the radical church that Obama attended in Chicago. That the right tried to make a point of that during the election, and it was quickly shot down and ignored. No, we should go back to that, because Black liberation theology is an idol amongst a community that professes to be a a faith-based community. That the Black church is an integral part to the community and is a point of pride. Well, then you need to shine a light on what some of those churches are, which are Marxist political organs, not actual churches.
Well, and also, I want to maybe slightly run a tangent on this. Why isn't the focus on the smoking crack? The gay sex, we're all liberated, right? We're accepting people, blah, blah, blah. We're not bigots, but crack is a bad thing. I'm for legalizing marijuana, but crack is a bad thing. And you look at inner city, even bad suburb Black America, it's part of the environment, and so many people fall into it. You've got a rich kid that is doing it by choice. That's different. He is doing it because he just doesn't care, versus that person that grew up in that environment and fell into it and can't stop. There's a big difference.
Yeah.
He was the Hunter Biden. I can do this thing that is, detrimental to my life, but guess what? I got this massive safety net.
Mhm.
that is going to protect me no matter what I do.
It is a sideshow when there are more relevant and important things that need to be focused on. I can grudgingly understand it if it's part of a broader plan and a broader point of undermining Obama's legacy and uh, uh, pointing out where within his two terms a lot of the stuff that people are bitching about now, it started then. So I can understand it as part of a broader plan to do that. I'm really disappointed though because it seems like we're just chasing clicks here.
Well, there is that, but I think this is where I pivot to the stuff I told you about, because you just talked about tainting the Obama legacy or whatever. I think the Obama camp is part of this because it distracts from the real bad things he did.
Mm,
Because a lot of people were starting to key on that. The libertarian voice is bigger than it's ever been right now with the alternative media section.
yeah.
You know, like I said, the Tim Pools of the world, the Dave Smiths of the world, that guy's on fire. I wish he did run for the presidency for libertarian. I think he could have brought it to the 5% vote they needed. But the the alternative media voice is the strongest it's ever been, and they've really been keying on some of the bad things that actually happened in the Obama administration, like this. And even give kudos to the ACLU; they're actually doing the right thing here.
Hmm.
For those that don't know this story, this is a drone strike on U.S. citizens. Al-Awlaki and two of his other family members that were killed without due process of the law. This was an executive order that resulted in these people dying. This
When I
wasn't.
when I first heard about this story, my initial reaction is, well, what were they doing in a nasty war zone in the first place? I changed my mind on it though when it's the more specific reporting when they were targeted. If they were collateral damage because they were near a legitimate
Well, except
terrorist target,
we weren't at war with Yemen, and it
there
wasn't
is
Al
that.
Qaeda.
There is that. But the reporting that they were the targets. Now the 16-year-old was the collateral damage, but the other two appear to have been the target. Ooh, now you're opening a big honking can of worms here.
Mm-hmm.
Of so the US president has the authority to execute someone without due process. If, okay, well, they weren't on US soil, so that makes it okay. So we could do it to anyone who's not on US soil. And then how long does it take before we have exigent circumstances? And so we can do it on US soil too, because it's an emergency.
And then you say, well, is it right or is it left? It's both. Now, I don't have a tab up for this one, but let's go all the way back to the Patriot Act and then the development of the Department of Homeland Security. And then fast forward to the Obama administration because he's the subject of this. And we get this at the end of 2012 and beginning in 2013, the National Defense Act for the fiscal year 2013. This did several things. It uh, it expanded how long you can detain somebody without due process of the law, and it brought forward an amendment to the Smith Modernization Act of 2012. So for those that are familiar with this, it's all about using the media to propagandize. And originally, the government was allowed to use propaganda overseas, but was not to use it allowed to use it on domestic citizens within the border. But the amendments, as we read here, officially allowed them to do that. And there were concerns. The people who were actually trying to speak up about it, this unnamed Pentagon official, which is a little suspect, but he's right. It removes the protection of Americans and it removes oversight from the people who want to put out this information. So now not only can they use our media system to propagandize us, there is no oversight to it. We can't even put a FOIA request to say what happened here because there's nothing to report. There are no checks and balances. No one knows if the information is accurate, partially accurate, or entirely false. What
And
happened about that time?
that's not a bug, that's a feature because Congress loves to pass the buck to regulators so that they can say, oh, we didn't have anything to do with this. We're as outraged as you are.
What year is this? Right here.
Yeah. 2012, 2013.
Right here. 2012, 2013, 2012, 2013, 2012, 2013, 2012, 2013. We've gone over these from a cultural standpoint before, but all of a sudden someone has control over what can be said. And it is also around the time of the populist rise. And that's not just left or right. That's Bernie on one side, that's Trump on the other. But actually, before Trump, you probably put Ron Paul in there, where he really fired up the Tea Party movement. So even before Trump, we had Ron Paul and we had Bernie really coming in hard. And all of a sudden, all of these things are happening. Just conspiracy theory, I guess.
I'm sure it's just a coincidence.
Just a coincidence. But that, again, okay, so go back to my statement about Obama. I think the team wants this information out because he was starting to take a lot of heat for a lot of different things. Part of it is his freaking chef dying. Another mystery death in the Bush, Clinton, and Obama era of someone very close that could have had information. And it was a very suspect death. You know, a guy who's paddleboarding drowns in 8-foot water. Why would you be paddleboarding if you couldn't at least swim? Right now, he could have hit his head. That's plausible. So we can't say for sure what happened, but it's pretty suspect. You know, and there's a Clinton aide that, you know, hangs himself after he's already shot himself in the chest with a shotgun. You know, maybe he was in too much pain from shooting himself that he decided to, instead of just using another round, actually hang himself. But
it happens all the time.
Yeah, happens all the time. 54 times in the Clinton era, by the way. I mean, I don't even hardly know 54 people, let alone 54 people that would off themselves. Now, granted, they got a big social circle, but they're all kind of close to the people that are doing this. So I don't think this rumor thing is a surprise, because think of it from Obama's perspective. I've got control of the media, including Tucker, because he might not be part of it, but he could be duped by it. This guy coming out could have been an Obama plant that is like, I got this story for you, man. Interview me. Now he's famous. Obama has his distraction. Tucker gets his fame from it. He gets his clicks from it.
Well,
everybody wins except us.
There were a couple of people in the campaign who said, way back when Obama was running, who said, I had gay sex with Barack Obama, and they were ignored by most of the media.
Yeah,
so
but
I don't
remember
know
back then he was running on gay marriage shouldn't happen.
So, but I don't know if this guy is one of those people. I don't know if he had already spoken out at one point and Tucker was just giving him the platform. Um, but
But
to
who's
your
to say who's not the Ray Epps of the Obama
well,
gay story?
Also to your point, the birther nonsense actually started with Hillary, but the Obama camp fanned the flames because it was so silly and because it was so easily mocked and because so few Americans actually bought into it. And by fanning the flames of the birther conspiracy theory, it let them lump all criticism of Obama's past into this of, oh, you're just a birther. What? No, I just want to know where he got the money to go to school. I want to know who was paying for him to go to school. I want to know who he was associating with and what he was doing during his undergraduate and graduate years. I want to know the people he was surrounding himself and working with when he left school. These are all very, very legitimate questions. But if you asked anything about his past during both of those runs, 2008 and 2012, you were a birther and you were a loon.
Again, controlling the narrative. You create the conspiracy theory that covers your ass on every other thing that comes out. And also add to it another level. There's so many levels to this. Add the oppression Olympics. Now he's not only a black man, he's a black gay man. And if you come after him, you're a bigot and a racist.
Mm-hmm. I'm
It,
just curious
it,
how
it,
much they could lean into that, because if they are fanning the flames the same way they did with the birther stuff, I would think they would have to really walk that tightrope though, because
oh, it would be a tightrope because it's we're not going to admit to this, but if you actually ask about this, you're the bigot.
mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it helps to have a media that's basically just an extension of your own press agency.
Mm-hmm. Which
Oh,
was yeah my last point there, which is it is no surprise that the person who signed this into the law is the person benefiting from it the most.
yeah.
I mean, there is that tie. Yeah. Not to say he
All
did it
right.
on purpose, but he knows how to use it.
Do we have anything else on this nonsense besides the fact that it's nonsense?
No, I just kind of wanted to keep it on the real. And yeah, I think yeah, if we look, just to summarize, if we look at the nuance of where the black vote is going to go, and we key in on young black men, then because realistically, this is not. Let me say this in a very precise way so we don't get clipped. It's not the nature of the person asking for the welfare, but if you're the victim of the people who put you in that situation, you're going to be more likely to go get that welfare. And young black women are being left single mothers quite often. So there, it is not in their in their in their self-interest to do anything different than what they've been doing. Because yes, there's a better way on the other side, but there's a period of breaking through a bunch of not happy time
Mm-hmm.
to get to it. It's like losing 30 pounds. You got to put in a lot of hard work and diet a lot to get there. So you start evaluating, well, 30 pounds ain't going to hurt that much over time. I'll be a little achy all the time and I won't feel as good and I might live a couple of years less, but that's a lot of hard work to get there. And I think the better angle to tackle that problem is to get them out of that situation to begin with by actually getting hold of these young men and making men out of them. That's the conundrum we're in, is we have to find that way to do that, which is not an easy policy decision. It's a cultural decision.
And as usual, my closing thought is don't get distracted by the shiny object just because someone's shaking keys in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't get
Well,
sidetracked by
that's why we
that.
let them simmer. That's why we let it simmer, because it allows us to take our emotional kind of, well, for me, it was more humorous than anything else. But if you are in that camp where, oh God, he lied to us the whole time about this one thing, and he ran on, get, marriage is a man and a woman, but he is this and da da da. Da. To me, it's humorous, but I can understand if you're on that side of the aisle, it would cause anger, and anger is the easiest. Fear is the easiest to hijack. Anger is the next, and a lot of times it's anger over being afraid. So
It all ties together. All
yeah.
right.
Oh, we gave no medical advice. We didn't do anything other than just speculate on stupid political shenanigans. We'll be back for part 2. This will be more fun because we get to bitch about something we have expertise of, which is our opinion about Wheel of Time. Everybody has expertise in their own opinion. So
Oh boy.
that'll
All
be
right.
fun. All right. Well, we're going to take a quick bathroom break and we'll be back part 2. If you're watching both of them, thank you very much. Like, share, subscribe, send it to your friends. As Clifton Duncan says, send it to your enemies if you didn't like it.
Of
And
course.
yeah, we'll be right back.